This is a war against the Erd Tree. We have no place for the meek, nor the luxury of keeping clean hands.
When informing the player about the Volcano Manor's mission, Tanith didn't lie about getting their hands dirty. But oh boy, what the people involved in this place were doing went far beyond merely going against the Erd Tree. In today's video, I will continue analyzing the disturbed places of Elden Ring, discussing the moral decay represented by Volcano Manor, who Rykard and Tanith were within this macabre scheme, and showcasing the influence of the twisted literature of Marquis de Sade in the description of the acts committed in the manor. If you missed the video about Scarlet Rot, don't forget to check it out. Rykard is the son of Radagon and Queen Renala of the Full Moon, a powerful sorceress and the head of the Carian royal family. I like to think that he was probably the middle child, with Radan as the powerful older brother and Rani as the adorable younger sister, likely the favorite, since Carian royalty follows a matriarchal order of succession. A curious point: since Rykard can be seen as the middle child, it is possible to consider the theory of the middle child syndrome, an idea that middle children are treated differently by their parents compared to their older and younger siblings. This theory suggests that birth order influences the child's personality and development, because parents tend to focus more on the firstborn and the youngest child. It is a hypothetical concept, explaining how middle children perceive the world based on their early life experiences. Anyway, when Radagon left Renala to become Queen Marika's new consort, his children were elevated to demigods, possibly to prevent major conflicts within the Carian royalty. There are no records in the game that Rykard was a respected and beloved military figure like Radan, but we do know that his men, the Mount Gelmir soldiers, were loyal to him. Rykard was the lord of the Volcano Manor, a grandiose structure in the Mount Gelmir, and while still following the teachings of the Golden Order, he became the leader of the Inquisitor Company, responsible for imprisoning, torturing, and judging all those who defile Marika's religion. Not too different from the Catholic Inquisition in the Middle Ages, which was only not responsible for the trials that were the prerogative of the state. Rykard reveals his sadistic nature here, carry out all manner of torture and cruelty upon those deemed heretics, meaning those who did not follow the teachings of the Golden Order. The player can only deduce the horrors suffered in areas like Prison Town, filled with corpses and caged albinarics. In fact, it is possible to speculate that Rykard induced a systematic persecution of first-generation albinarics, seen as an offense to the faith of the Erd Tree. After all, we know that the poor albinarics are not creations of the gods, but rather experiments carried out either by the Nox or by the sorcerers of Raya Lucaria. The Inquisitors were cruel. The descriptions of 2 weapons used by this group indicate the atrocities committed within Volcano Manor. The Inquisitor's Girandole states that this instrument was used to torture nobles behind the curtains at the Volcano Manor of Mount Gelmir. Its numerous spikes pierce the flesh, then singe the wounds with flame. The smell of burned blood induces despair in the victim. Meanwhile, Giza's wheel, a device of torture, spins and causes severe pain and blood loss. Even the clothing worn by the Inquisitors reveals gruesome rituals and darkest duties carried out without mercy. Grab a blue robe worn by magisterial officers to carry out their grim tasks. Surveillance, executions, gruesome rituals. The darkest duties drive the wheels of mankind. I have a theory that when dealing with the Inquisitors, Rykard wore a metal mask, just like Tanith, Giza, and Moray. At this point, I believe that Moray was also part of this group. We see a mysterious painting of a masked man wearing the same robes as the Inquisitors in the room next to the portal leading to Rykard. That room, in fact, strongly resembles a place of worship and a meeting spot for those involved in Rykard's blasphemous rituals. There is even a throne, indicating that it was there that the Lord of Volcano Manor would sit. But Rykard was not satisfied with just his company of torturers. He needed more. So he created the abductor virgins, constructs used to capture and transport victims to Volcano Manor, where they could suffer the most brutal tortures. Later, with the outbreak of the war against the Earth Tree, these Iron Virgins were deployed on the battlefield. Interestingly, the presence of abductor virgin in Raya Locaria suggests that Rykard used his mother's territory for his bloodthirst hunts. It was in Mount Gelmir, more precisely near the volcano, that Rykard discovered a different kind of sorcery. After discovering the ancient hexes of Gelmir, Rykard, son of Queen Renala, brought them back into practical use as new forms of sorcery. And it was a royalty that Rykard traveled to a foreign land, perhaps the Land of Shadows, perhaps a region beyond the known map, where he met who would become his greater love, Tanith, a beautiful dancer. If she was from the Land of Shadow, it is possible to speculate that she was a dancer of Rana, with her bright red dress and dances of burning passion. Since there are few references to dancers in the game, anything is possible. This would also explain the tonic of forgetfulness. In my video about Mesmer, I discussed the theory that Marika cast a spell or did something powerful enough to make all the lords of the lands between forget the land where she was born. But what if Rykard didn't want to forget? What if he kept that knowledge and offered it to Tanith so that she would forget the abomination he had become? My lord, there could be no greater distress than to forget you. Thus, the dancer became Lady Tanith, Rykard's consort. It is important to note that a queen consort is the wife of a king and usually share the social status of the king. Here, that is not the case. Firstly, because Rykard, though of royal blood, never became a king. But more importantly, because Tanith was not of noble birth, being just a simple dancer, and beyond that, a foreign woman. This must have shocked the Earth Tree aristocracy. But of course, their relationship would be the least controversial part of the entire Volcano Manor story. Tanith didn't just love Rykard, she was obsessed with him. According to the description of the consort's mask, she was the only human to remain by his side when he became the Serpent of Blasphemy. In that moment, Tanith was truly charmed by him. Aside from the recusants, the tarnished who embraced moral corruption, the entire human force of Rykard's army abandoned him as he descended further into macabre desires. One observation. I like to think that Rykard had a Crucible Knight in his personal guard, possibly a gift from Godfrey when he was Elden Lord. But when Rykard became the Serpent we know today, he gave the powerful knight to Tanith as a gift. A stoic force of nature, a perfect protector for his devoted wife. Perhaps the only thing that makes Tanith seem remotely good is her relation with her daughter, Raya, or Zorias.
Did you see her? The girl, Raya, with her true face? Well, if she confided in you the name Zorias, then perhaps it is not my place to speak. But as her adoptive mother, I ask of you, please, be kind to her. Look after young Zorias. Her true visage belies the purity of her heart. Honestly, I hardly deserve the sweet child.
Raya is a kind at heart and gentle girl, Tanith's adoptive daughter, the child of Rykard and Decay. More details will be discussed later in the video. Unlike her parents, Raya, or Zorias, her true name, is portrayed as a pure-hearted, without malice or corruption. Tanith treats her with affection. It is one of the rare moments where the player sees a softer side of Tanith. Raya also harbors a maternal love for Tanith, as revealed in various moments throughout the game. Raya keeps a necklace with her mother's image, and it appears to hold great significance for her. In Zoraya's farewell letter to the player, she writes, I wish to set out on a journey, so that one day I can carry on Mother's work, be the proud daughter of Tanith of Volcano Manor. One day, I hope to call her mother once again, this time from the bottom of my heart. Mesmerized by the possibility of becoming more powerful, Rykard assists his sister Ranni in orchestrating the Night of the Black Knives, assassinating Godwyn the Golden. Ranni also gives Rykard an artifact imbued with traces of the stolen Rune of Death, a tool that would allow Rykard to challenge Maliketh and steal the rest of destined death if necessary. Following the shattering of the Elden Ring, conflict breaks out among Marika's descendants. Rykard takes advantage of this moment to chase his own ambition, to become a king. But not a king bound to the Earth Tree, no. Furious by the way the Golden Order and the Greater Will view humanity, he became a heretic, one who defiles faith and religious doctrines. A heretic is someone who strays from what is accepted by the church or religious authorities.
Now, perhaps the time has come to tell you of the true ruler of this manor, Lord Rykard. The Erd Tree blessed the Tarnished with grace, but it was all too meager in the face of the enormity of their task. The Tarnished were forced to scavenge, squabbling for crumbs, like the Shard Bearers vying for power in the wake of the shattering. Our Lord, indignant, has refused to scurry about, fighting over what miserly scraps they allow us. If the Erd Tree, and indeed the very gods, would debase us so, then we are willing to raise the banner of resistance, even if it means heresy. We at the Volcano Manor, under Lord Rykard, have sworn no rest until it is done. If you follow this heroic path, one day the Lord will see you. The Lord's visits with our champions are always a spectacle. It cannot come a day too soon.
When Rykard turned to heresy, taken by force become the rule, the gods themselves were no different after all. And his men admire him for this. His rebellious purpose to defy the Earth Tree led many to follow him into battle, a war that was bloody and without any glory. The player can witness the destruction of Mount Gelmir and the ruins of the endless battle between Lando's forces and Rykard's army. But heresy alone was not enough for Rykard. He needed to carry out his blasphemous acts in a new way. He had to merge with the very serpent that dwelled inside Mount Gelmir, the guardian of the ancient religion once practiced in the region. And so, Rykard offered himself to the god-devouring serpent, also known as Igli. From that moment on, there were no more limits for Rykard. Of course, this act was not well received by many of his soldiers, who abandoned him, fleeing in terror from what their former master had become.
Pray to Rykard's ambitions, though blasphemous, marked him a worthy sovereign, but they were reduced to gluttonous depravity once he gave himself to the Serpent. Whatever that thing is, it is no longer Praetor Rykard. Someone must kill him to spare him and his ambitions from further dishonor.
Rebelling against the oppressive faith of the Earth Tree was one thing, but taking his ambition down the path of vice and perversion was something entirely different. As the Lord lost his dignity, so too did his knights lose their master. Rykard no longer cared about anything other than feeding the god-devourer serpent. And so, Tanith, his devoted wife, sent men, his former allies, to their deaths. The arena where Rykard awaits is filled with the corpses of warriors who died to feed the monstrosity that their lord had become. The Rykard's Rancor spell states, summon searing spirits that leave a trail of delay explosions in their wake. These spirits manifest from the rancor of heroes who met a violent end. The Lord granted them an audience, whereupon they were welcomed by the maw of the great Serpent, and within the Serpent's bowels they become the Lord's kin. Some of his own men attempted to kill their corrupted master, only to meet death. The player finds the Serpent Hunter, a weapon created to slay the serpent that Rykard had become. But can a god truly be slain? As Rykard himself states before vanishing,
I serve never
anyway, Tanith continued Rykard's plan to destroy everything that represented the Earthtree, its teachings and its faith. Through Raya, the scout, Tanith recruited new recusants, tarnished and disappointed with the reality they witnessed. Of course, they had no idea that Rykard has become a serpent that would devour them all to amplify his vile power. Among the recusants is you, the player, who gradually begins to realize that you are being sent to hunt and kill fellows tarnished, honorable warriors who did not deserve such a fate. But the world of Elden Ring is cruel, and the player follows the missions, sinking deeper into blasphemy. By the way, our first mission for Volcano Manor is to kill Old Knight Istvan, the poor tarnished who once helped us long ago when we fought the demi-human chief in Coastal Cave. Just like Bernal says.
Well, as long as you understand what you're saying. You have harbored doubts from the very beginning. Perhaps this day was always lurking on the horizon. But know that the path you walk is blasphemy and leads only to a miserable death. Before you consider hunting any of your own kind, think on that.
Rykard never hid the fact that he was far from the ideal image of order and honor. Even before merging with the god Serpent, he was already known for blaspheming against the Golden Order and committing acts of extreme violence. After all, before breaking away from the Earthtree, he used his role as Inquisitor as an excuse to be a cruel leader. Blasphemy is the act of showing contempt or disrespect towards a deity, a sacred object, or something considered sacred. Many religions view blasphemy as a serious offense. In Islam, insulting the Prophet Muhammad is considered blasphemous, while in Judaism, speaking the sacred name of God is forbidden. Christianity regards blasphemy against the Holy Spirit as an unforgivable sin. During the medieval period, those accused of blasphemy were often subject to punishment and discipline. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. One of the 10 Commandments forbids blasphemy, which Christians regard as an offering to God holiness. The word blasphemy came via Middle English blasphemen and late Latin blasphemare, meaning injure. From blasphemare also come Old French blasphémer, from which the English word blame came. So, Rykard began twisted acts to create grotesque creatures that resemble snakes, the men serpents, the guardians of Prison Town. The woman responsible for these acts was known as Decay. There were likely other women involved, but Decay is the only one explicitly mentioned, because she is the mother of Zoraya's. Disturbing likeness of a woman whose skin was flayed, she smiles with a serene tenderness. It is said that this woman, named Decay, indulged in every form of adultery and wicked pleasure imaginable, giving birth to a myriad of grotesque children. Several points can be understood from this text. Her skin was flayed. We do not know whether this occurred before or after her acts, but given that Rykard's cruelty had no limits, it can be speculated that after giving birth to a myriad of grotesque children, she was flayed as punishment, or perhaps even more creepy, as a form of pleasure. Flayed skin is an act performed by the godskin nobles and apostles, who are known from stitching together the skins of their victim as robes. In fact, we find a godskin noble and a black flame monk near the temple of Ifgli. These monks were once part of the fire monks, guardians of the flame of ruin, but they betrayed their own order. The black flame monk armor states, "The seduction of a taboo is never easily spurned." Taboo refers to a prohibited or restricted action, behavior, or subject that is considered unacceptable by a particular society, culture, or religion. Taboos often arise from social, religious, or cultural beliefs and can change depending on different societies and time periods. Social taboos are behaviors considered inappropriate in society, like cannibalism or certain sexual practice, which I can't even dream of speaking in this video. Anyway, it becomes clear what was happening in that place. Various taboos were practiced by those living in the manor. The name Igle, given to the serpent that Rykard submits to, has an interesting origin. It appears to be derived from Igle, a name of Lithuanian origin. The story of Igle, the Queen of Serpent, is a famous Lithuanian folk tale about love, betrayal, and transformation. Igle, a young girl, unknowingly promises to marry a serpent after finding it in her clothes while bathing. When the serpent comes to claim her, her family tries to trick it, but eventually she is taken to the sea, where the serpent reveals himself as Sylvinas, a handsome prince. They live happily in an underwater kingdom and have 4 children. Years later, Igle wishes to visit her family. Sylvinas allows her to go but gives her a secret summoning ritual for her return. When Igle brothers learn the secret, they use it to ambush and kill Sylvinas. Upon discovering the betrayal, Igle, in grief and rage, curses her children to turn into trees. Her sons become strong trees, while her daughter, who revealed the secret, becomes a trembling aspen. Many myths from different cultures feature human-animal relationships, often symbolizing themes of transformation, divine unions, or forbidden love. Some notable examples are Zeus, the Greek god, transforms into a swan and seduces Leda, leading to the birth of Helen of Troy. Queen Pasiphae, cursed by Poseidon, falls in love with a bull and gives birth to the Minotaur. In Norse myths, Loki transforms into a mare and mates with a giant stallion, later giving birth to Sleipnir, Odin's 8-legged horse. In Celtic myths, Selkies are the seal people who can shed their skin to become human. They often marry humans, but eventually return to the sea. And in Japanese folklore, kitsunes are fox spirits that take in human form, often marry humans and bearing mystical children. Of course, in Elden Ring, Rykard's story is far from representing a beautiful union. Instead, it aligns much more with the concept of taboo, as something truly sickening. In the Temple of Igle, we also find the serpent's amnion. Amnion from the mother's womb, which cradled the poor unwanted offspring of a repellent birth ritual. This amnion belongs to Zoraias, and the player quickly deduced that the poor girl was born from Rykard in his serpentine form and Deidekar. Curiously, Zoraias was conceived through cruelty, yet she was a kind and pure-hearted young girl. Perhaps in a rare moment of genuine maternal love, Tanith adopted her, lying to her by saying she was born by the grace of a glorious king. Slowly, Zoraias uncovers the dark secrets of Volcano Manor, culminating in the discovery that the amnion she found belongs to her. When Zoraias finds out the truth about her serpentine origin, Her reaction is devastating.
There is something I must tell you. I was an unwanted child, born not of grace, but of a hideous ritual. Something that can never be accepted. Not by men, nor serpents. Even Lady Tanith shouldn't accept me. I know that you have done so much for me, but I wish to ask one last kindness. Kill me, please. I thought that I feared nothing, but this... Free me from this accursed frame.
It is up to the player to decide her fate. I always let her live. One of the stories that can have a somewhat happy ending in the game. The atrocities that took place in Volcano Manor also recall another possible inspiration for the game's developers, the literature of Marquis de Sade, in particular 120 Days of Sodom. The Nassien Alphonse François Marquis de Sade, born in 1740, death in 1814, was a French writer, nobleman, and political activist, known for his liberty novels, which explore controversial themes of sexuality, blasphemy, morality, and human nature. His major works are The 120 Days of Sodom, Justine, Juliet, and Philosophy in the Bedroom. Describe graphic and extreme human behavior, often intertwined with discussions on religion, politics, and morality. Sade spent most of his adult life in prison for several crimes, though there is debate over the extent of his criminal actions. While some argue his real-life behavior was less extreme than his writings, others emphasize his cruelty acts. His name gives rise to the term sadism, referring to the enjoyment of inflicting pain on others. Interest in his work increased in the 20th century, with various authors considering him a precursor to Nietzsche, Freud, and Surrealism. In 1909, Guilherme Apollinaire, responsible for the Cubist movement, called him the freest spirit that has yet existed. Many prominent intellectuals published studies of his work, and numerous biographies have appeared. Sade has also entered Western culture as a case study in sexual pathology. Sadism disorder, a mental condition named after Sade, has been defined as experiencing pleasure in response to pain or suffering to others, as described by Sade in his novels. The work of Marquis de Sade, that bears the closest resemblance to the acts committed in Volcano Manor, is The 120 Days of Sodom, the controversial and infamous unfinished novel, written in 1785 and published only in 1904, after its manuscript was rediscovered. The story follows four wealthy Frenchmen who retreat to an isolated castle, accompanied by a group of accomplices, servants, and captives. Over the course of 4 months, they seek ultimate pleasures by pushing moral and ethical boundaries, inspired by the stories of 4 aging courtesans who recount the most extreme experience of their past clients. The novel explored themes of power, corruption, and moral decay, presenting an unsettling critique of absolute authority and excess. Written in secrecy, the manuscript was thought to have been lost when the Bastille was stormed during the French Revolution in 1789. However, it was later discovered, preserved, and eventually published in 1904 for academic and historical study. Due to its graphic content and controversial themes, the book faced bans and restrictions in several countries before becoming more widely available in the 60s. Today, it remains one of the most debated literature works, studied for its philosophical reflections and historical significance rather than explicit subject matter. In the novel, each evening is structured around storytelling sessions where storytellers share experiences that reflect 5 different passions, which challenge conventional society and religious norms. These stories unfold over 4 months, resulting in 120 tales, each escalating in intensity and complexity. The narratives are characterized into 4 stages, progressing from simple to extreme transgressions. Despite its controversial content, the work has been analyzed for historical and psychological implications over time. Anyway, it was difficult to talk about Sade while keeping the writing more friendly, but one thing is certain: Rykard would be proud to follow Sade's teachings. The entire atmosphere of the manor strongly resembles the descriptions of settings in Sade's works. In fact, the interior of Volcano Manor bears a striking resemblance to the sophisticated architecture of 18th century French chateaux. Macabre details such as the red candles, blood-stained scenery, and the cruel darkness that follows the players strongly resemble the manor frequented by the twisted figures in the book. Even the church with red candles at the entrance of Prison Town seems like a deliberate provocation, just like Sade's work. It challenges religion, as the place was not built to honor faith. And, return to Decay and her actions, Sade himself wrote about the appeal of ugliness in his works. Beauty belongs to the sphere of the simple, the ordinary, whilst ugliness is something extraordinary, and there is no question but that every ardent imagination prefers the lubricity, the extraordinary, to the commonplace. Even Rykard himself admitted that the path he followed was one of sin. I understand. The road of blasphemy is long and perilous. One cannot walk it unprepared to sin. But the question remains: was it necessary to descend into the bowels of perversion? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on Volcano Manor and Rykard. See you in the next lore video. Bye!